welcome to Book World: The Great Escape. I'm author CJ Peterson. My co-host, over this way, is author Michael Scott Clifton. My stuff is reversed. Author Michael Scott Clifton. Welcome to the new year. I'm super excited. New Year's 2024. Yay. We are pre-recording. So if you ask questions, don't worry. We'll get to you eventually and we'll get them answered. But please do not be offended if they don't show up on the screen today. So we're going to be heading into the writer's purpose to instruct. But before we do, Mike, how was your Christmas and New Year's?
We're wonderful. Of course, Christmas is time for family. And we had my daughter. I have my daughter here and my son-in-law and our grandson and my son, and we had a great time. And it was, Christmas is always important to our family. Pardon me. And anyway, they had stayed for 3 or 4 days, and it didn't rain on Christmas, which it threatened to do. So we were grateful of that. And it was really neat because our grandson is 2.5 years old, and he's finally reached that age where Christmas actually
is fun.
Fun, and means something. And it was really neat. And New Year's was just Melanie and I, and we had peas.
Black eyed peas.
So hopefully, lots of luck for the upcoming year. I did have. I'm suffering through my 5th or 6th cold of the year, so I think that's a Clifton record. Anyway, if I sound like I'm talking from the end of a long tunnel, that's probably why. So looking forward to the new year, and hopefully we will be able to do a lot. We're looking forward to the book events and writing a new book, and very excited because my last book, Pringle Prawn, has done very, very well so far, and I'm real happy about that. So, and of course, I know CJ, y'all are happy because you're finally moved in, and
yes.
and you're not having to live out of a suitcase anymore. So, and looks like you've got some exciting things to report as well, especially your YouTube subscriptions.
Yes, we have tons of exciting things going on. Yes, we finally reached 1,000. Yay! Super excited. Thank you all for who supported. Please make sure to hit the subscribe if you catch me, or if you're on Mike's, make sure to subscribe to his. Thank you guys so much. I'm so excited that I reached 1,000. I'm hoping to continue to grow and keep going up. Also, we did the Christmas lights at Christmas. So I did put some of those lights up on my YouTube. You can check them out. I probably will be putting the other one up. I did a Facebook Live from the one that was close to our house in downtown Oklahoma City. That was pretty cool. And then, unfortunately, I got way too cold. So I ended up getting sick. So our New Year's, we were at home, unfortunately. We do have a friend of ours who's visiting. She's like a second daughter to us. That's what the suitcase is behind me. And so her request was to make tamales. So we made tamales yesterday, and New Year's kind of slowly made them. It's a process, so we kind of slowly made them. Secret ingredient to tamales: put the salsa in the masa. That way they're not dry. So that's kind of a little bit of a cooking tip for you. We have tons of fun things going on. We're gearing up in this household to turn it into pretty much a dorm because we're all 3 heading into college starting on the 16th of January. I will be doing forensic investigation and psychology as my bachelor's, double major. And then same with daughter, and hubby's going to be doing a bachelor's of science.
Wow.
So we're going to be working feverishly. On top of all of that, I did finally get the okay from my LLC people that we will be starting Royal Rose Publishing.
Good. Congratulations.
Thank you. So super excited. Texas Sisters Press is going to kind of stay to the side because we are no longer Texas centric. I wanted to create one that was brand new. So we'll be moving some books from Texas Sisters Press over to Royal Rose to kind of give it that jump start. In the meantime, I'm super excited to let you guys know the different things that are going to be popping up. Of course, we're always going to do the book launches where you can get free stuff. And that's always fun. We try to find people of like genre to join in on the fun with those. In the meantime, pretty much still unpacking. We're about 85%. We can actually see the other wall of the garage when we go out. So I'm excited. We actually have a floor in our bedroom now. It's not all boxes. So we've been working feverishly to try to get it all done by the 16th. So that's our goal. But we'll just see how it goes. But today we're going to be talking about the writer's purpose is to instruct. We do have a couple slides so that you can kind of rewind and go back if you're missing something and catch it later. But we'll do a couple of those now because there's a couple funny ones. One of them is basically to instruct is the author's purpose is to provide a step-by-step guidance or directions to the reader. That's our main thing. We'll hit the other two, maybe not. Some examples of instructions. This is where it gets fun. Cooking directions. Number 1, lift tab and pull to remove lid. This was on the side of a Campbell's can. Number 2, immediately slice fingertip on edge of lid. Number 3, throw lid very hard into garbage can so it knows what it's done. Number 4, laugh at a portion of directions regarding the stove. Number 5, dump the cold glob into microwave safe bowl. Lose appetite. Number 6, microwave until scalding on the edges and freezing in the middle. Number 7, stir until lukewarm throughout. Number 8, ignore soup-coated walls of microwave forever. So that's a funny one, but that is definitely an instruction. And of course, you go to a lot of stores and you'll see the push to open. Well, this one's got kind of humorous. Push to open. If that does not work, pull. If both do not work, try the actual entrance around the corner. And then this is going to be my personal favorite because we're heading into school. It was for a bio final exam. Here are the instructions. Read the questions carefully and select the most appropriate answer. If there is only one correct answer for each question. If you cannot answer a question, leave it, attempt the next one, and try not to cry. If you must cry, please do so quietly. Do not wipe tears on the exam paper. Exams are like your exes. Try to get over them as soon as possible. So kind of a little bit of humor into the studies. But basically, to instruct.
I was going to interject there. When I was teaching science, we had the state of Texas started a requirement they called exit tests, and you had to take a test in the subject. This is a teacher now. Teachers had to take tests in the subjects in which they taught, and they had to pass. Yes, they had to pass. We had to pass the test in order to prove our proficiency to teach the test. Now that's been 25 years ago, or even longer. And but at the time it was new. So I remember CJ going into, it was Mount Pleasant's high school cafeteria, and it seats hundreds of people. And I was taking the science test because that's what science exit test, because that's what I taught. So I go in there, and of course it's just, wall to wall people take, you come in, you take the test, and they had places for you to sit.
Right.
And I literally did see halfway through the test, several people crying.
Aww.
One guy got so mad he broke his pencil, got up and stormed out.
Oh.
Another woman that was right across from me, she just lost it. She started and you're supposed to be quiet, right? She just broke down and started crying. And you're trying to take this test, you're looking, is somebody else around here doing that too? And anyway, they literally did break down and cry because I guess they were having such a hard time taking the test. Now, and so to this day I remember that vividly because you don't see grown adults cry over a test very often. So
no.
That stuck with me.
Definitely. Oh, that sounds painful. I feel bad for them. Shame. So instructions, there's a lot of things regarding instructions, and we were talking about this before. There's a lot of gray area in it. We're also going to be talking about next week, we're going to be doing entertain. And then the 17th, we're going to be doing Inform. Inform and Instruct kind of go hand in hand. We probably should have done those together, but oh well. So when we're talking about instructions, we're talking about like step-by-step guidelines, instruction manuals, cooking recipes, travel guides, kind of different things that you have to do, like a 1, 2, 3, 4 type deal. So that's one thing, some things to consider. To instruct, how to write good instructions. This is kind of a no-brainer, but when people ask me different ways to market, I kind of think they're no-brainers. So we're going to go ahead and just spell these things out. How to write good instructions. You use short sentences and do not convey more than a single idea in a sentence. So for example, cooking. You don't want to overwhelm the person who's trying to cook, especially if they're trying to follow a recipe. You're talking about changing a light bulb. Or if a light bulb was fixed, changing, a light into a fan. That's the step-by-step instructions. Putting the shelves together that I have been meticulously doing over the last month and a half is following the instructions to put shelves together. Use appropriate punctuation to make the instructions clear. Use active voice. Use imperative tone to avoid any ambiguity. Be very specific in what you're saying on some things, because you need to write it at a level that is below what you think that they can understand. That way, there's no mistaking what you're meaning. Start all instruction writing pieces with clear title and brief introduction. And then list the equipment and materials the reader will need underneath the title. That gets fun. For example, those shelf pieces, they were like pieces everywhere. So I would literally lay them out and make sure I had everything before I even started.
It's funny because, we just celebrated Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
And the 3 most dreaded words for parents at Christmas are some assembly required.
Yes.
And so when you say use, don't convey more than a single idea, use short sentences. Well, that's, we all can relate to that if we've ever tried to put toys together.
Right.
Don't write a paragraph on step 1.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And be very clear about, the steps. And I really like what you said, keep them in short sentences and bites, because I'm sure we all have done this in our life as parents,
Mm-hmm.
or even as adults when we bought something that requires some assembly. And of course it comes with the instructions, and then the instructions are ambiguous.
Yes.
Or they're not spelled out concisely, or the instructions, as we said in the first bullet, use short sentences and don't convey more than a single idea. The instructions start off with a gush of material,
Mm-hmm.
but if you don't know, if you've never put this something together before, it can be very confusing. And I think sometimes, and this doesn't matter whether you're a fiction or a nonfiction author, and we're talking about nonfiction here.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes if you are proficient, let's say you're proficient mechanic,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and you're writing a how-to book, okay, you with the mechanic, you may have in your mind very clear idea about the way how to do things, and to you it's easy and it's simple, and
Mm-hmm.
you assume things because of that.
Yes, do not assume.
And because you assume things, the instructions do appear ambiguous because it seems as if something has been left out.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's very important if you're, especially with nonfiction, and particularly if it has anything to do with instructions or how to, okay, that you never assume that your readers know what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can raise my hand and say, if I had a quarter for every time I was reading, some sort of instruction manual, and by the bottom of the page, I was more confused at the bottom than I was when I started at the top.
And use layman's terms. Not everybody understands what things are. Describe
Exactly.
sometimes people don't know what a Phillips head is or a flathead. They, if you're talking for example, turning, uh, what's the term? My brain is fried right now. Uh, Making essential oils. You don't always know how to distill. People don't necessarily know what distill is. So you're going to have to explain some of the terms as you're going through and making them. You need to explain, for example, with the herbs, what the herb looks like. So you have to have a picture. You have to explain what it's good for, what parts of it are good for it, and what parts are not good, you can throw away. And so you need to be very clear on your instructions. Sometimes a lot of health ones, they use terms that you don't know. And so we need to be very careful with that. You need watch like the technical writing may be needed, but you're going to have to explain
Yes.
what we have here. Order each instruction step by step using numbers preferred or little dashes. Ensure that each step follows a logical sequence. Technical writing may be needed. Make sure, like I said, that if there is technical writing, make sure you explain in layman's terms what it is. The last thing you want to do is confuse them. Go ahead. Use action words or verbs to tell the reader what to do. Use describing words or adverbs to explain how things should be done in detail. Ensure you're revising. Make sure that you're, oh, that was the wrong term. Make sure they are revising their work as they write each instruction. So make sure that you are revising your work as you're writing each instruction. Make it clear.
A good example is we've all like I've got books, and I don't know of a writer that doesn't have books that you use as reference books when it comes to rules of writing and things such as that. And the ones I really like the best, which a lot of times you can just Google it, and you'll get a summary of, when is it appropriate to use a gerund? Okay, which most of the time it's not. Well, there's some people that I follow, authors that I follow that have written books and articles on writing. And what I like about them is they give examples. Okay, they give examples. They just don't say, okay, this is these are this. Don't ever use ing words in any way, shape, or fashion. Well, no, it's not possible. So when is it appropriate? When is it not? Give an example. And that's, I don't know, maybe I'm not as sharp as the next person, but the examples always clear it up for me. So, and I think when you're using those describing words to explain how things should be done in detail, that's what you're doing, and giving examples as well. And so I think that's extremely important when you're trying to instruct someone. You got to assume that, let's say it's a how-to book. Why would they buy the how-to book if they already knew the how-to part? You have to assume that they don't know, and you have to make sure that you make it as clear as possible in your instructions. And if you don't, okay, again, go back to those 3 dreaded words that parents hate: some assembly required.
Yes.
And how many of us have been stumped putting together a simple child's toy?
Or go to IKEA and try to put something together from them.
Yeah. Hex head screwdriver. Well, they come in different sizes. Which size should we use?
Like I said, or some people don't know what a Phillips head and a flathead are.
Yeah.
Sometimes they never know what a bolt or what the difference between a bolt and a screw. And not everybody is proficient in everything. Example, like I said before, with the essential oils, not everybody knows the difference between the oils and what they're good for. Not everybody knows the difference between distill or even, just different, or even just boiling it out of it. There's many things that you don't know how to do, and that's what the instruction ones are good for. With health, some may be, like you're talking about the examples. Red O'Loughlin writes a lot of health stuff. and he's really good at making everything clear and concise. But, he adds his stories into it as well, and that helps to balance out the heaviness of an instruction manual, but also helps you apply it to real life.
It's funny that you use the Phillips head.
Mhm.
I was well into my 20s before I realized what an Allen wrench was.
Oh, no.
Yes, well in my 20s, I thought it's a wrench named after a guy named Allen, and I'd never, if you'd put an Allen wrench before me, I wouldn't have known what it was. And like I said, well into my 20s before I understood the difference between an Allen wrench and a regular Phillips or flathead screwdriver. And if you're telling me use an Allen wrench in your instructions, and you assume I know what an Allen wrench is, well, I'm going to be one of those people who probably gets stumped on the very first rattle out of the box.
Mhm.
I'm going to try to Google Allen and see what he knows about his wrench.
Exactly. There are tons of different examples for instructions. There's articles, there's technical manuals, there's diagrams with explanations, which are nice, question and answer leaflets, encyclopedia reference entries, textbooks, and as we talked about, nonfiction books. There are a lot of examples of instruction manuals that, make our life a little easier.
I think the test, when you showed the test instructions
Mm-hmm.
on was it biology? Was that it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I thought that was really, there's an important part. It says choose the best answer.
Mm-hmm.
So what does that mean? It means that there is no 100% completely right answer. In other words, it's not a true or false. It's one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
You have to choose the answer that fits the best. And if you read through the directions pretty quickly, or if you don't specify that in the directions themselves, then again, you're going to have a lot of, you're not going to get the result that you want. And if you're a writer and you're not clear about that as well. So I think sometimes, I guess what I'm saying is when you have instructions like in biology, choose the best answer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The person taking the test needs to know what that means.
Mm-hmm.
What it does not mean. It doesn't mean, because let's face it, most tests, there's only one right answer out of, I don't know, you may have a multiple choice question, but there's only one answer that's completely right. But in the sense of that, the philosophy of the test, which nowadays in schools, for example, critical thinking is very important. And so tests are no longer straight black and white, yes or no, right or wrong answers. They go along the line of the test question, which you had shown an example of. Choose the best answer. And as an author, if you're doing something that's nonfiction, and if there is not a best practice, or only, if there's not a clearly right or wrong best practice, then make sure that's part of the instructions.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And like we were talking about before, there are many examples of different instructions. When you're cooking, not everybody knows what preheat means. I didn't when I first learned to cook. I didn't understand preheat.
Oh, preheat.
No, I'm looking at the oven going, okay, well, where's the preheat button? What the importance of preheating an oven. Not everybody understands that you're not supposed to put it in until it is preheated, because that's where the time starts in the recipes. Not everybody gets that stuff. So you need to make sure to be perfectly clear. Keep stirring as you're getting something to a boil. Otherwise it'll stick to the bottom of your pan. They don't know a lot of this stuff, and you have to, like I said, you kind of have to, I don't use the term, I don't like using the term dumb it down, but take it down several notches to where you think they should be, because not everybody is there.
It depends on your audience.
Mm-hmm.
who it is that you're, if it's again a how-to book, who's your audience,
Mm-hmm.
and if they're complete amateurs or completely uh, non-proficient in whatever it is, whatever topic or subject that the nonfiction work is about, then you need to take that in consideration. Uh, because people, if you dumb it down to the point where people who, well, if I already know that, I don't need, what do you, I mean, that's just, you know, I need to know more in depth, kind of um, instruction or information.
Yeah, that's why I love the fact that they started the For Dummies series because some of us really need the actual whatever for dummies because we really don't know. And so whoever created that was absolutely genius. I love that. One thing to consider when you're writing instructions have many applications, most of which are nonfiction, as we talked about. However, a little humor amidst the instruction alleviates some of the heaviness of giving instructions. Death by PowerPoint is a thing. Give them the meat of the information, allow them to digest the information, and answer any questions they may have with a frequently asked question. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. We'll be happy to answer them for you. I'll leave that up there for just a minute. But a lot of times when dealing with instruction and nonfiction, subjects are heavy. So make sure to add a little humor to it. It's the same thing with fiction. Sometimes you get so into the story, you have to add a little humor to it. Make sure you've got a comedic character in there. It's the same thing, same application goes into instruction. Add a little bit of humor, like the side of the Campbell's soup can. You know you're going to cut your finger. Throw it into the trash can so it knows that it did wrong. Just have a little fun with it sometimes. And sometimes, you got to make sure to give examples. Like Mike said, make sure that, they understand the applications and how that works. As we talk about the essentials or like a survival manual, or I even have from my books, I have, hand-to-hand combat manuals. There are many things that you can do and ways that you can do it that make some of the heavier subjects a little bit lighter.
It occurred to me while we were talking, because of the times that we live in,
Mm-hmm.
that one man or woman's fiction is another man or woman's nonfiction, and vice versa. That the lines are blurred between what's considered fiction and what's considered nonfiction,
There are times. Mm-hmm.
and based upon a person's viewpoint, worldview, or viewpoint, and what they consider to be true and what they consider not to be true, or what they consider to be fact and what they consider to be fiction. And that also complicates things today. And I think, not to get too deep in the weeds, but things that used to be considered just pretty much straight up fact 20, 30 years ago have been called into question today, where it's even hard to have a discussion because the so-called facts are not facts to another person, fiction. And that means that when we're talking about nonfiction, well, again, if you follow that logically, what you and I, CJ, may consider to be nonfiction, another person may consider that to be fiction because it doesn't align with the things that they believe in, for example. And that you can turn that around and say some things that we consider fiction, other people consider nonfiction.
Well, look at the Star Trek series. Some of the things that are in Star Trek are now used. The communicators, what do they look like? The cell phones of today. Sometimes they do. People get the ideas from fiction.
And there are some people that are just gullible. I hate to say it. And they see something, they read something, they feel they view that as fact. The Martians have landed. Well, there's no such thing as Martians, but there's people that my wife's grandfather believed that aliens have visited the Earth many, many times, and he was a subscriber to National Enquirer. Now, there's your fact tabloid, right? And so
yeah, National Enquirer, but National Geographic is a really good one for instruction. They go to different places. There's a lot of instruction and nonfiction out there. How it's presented, some people like just the meat. Some people like a little humor. It depends on the style of the author, and have a little fun with it.
I think, basically, if you're doing instruction, that pretty much classifies it as nonfiction.
Mhm.
So, and as we've talked about, there's other kinds of instruction in nonfiction, but if it has anything to do with instruction, then it is going to be nonfiction. If it's fiction, then it's not. This is, of course, again, we live in a blurred world, but to me, it's no longer. If it's not nonfiction, then it has to be fiction, and that takes it into a completely different category.
Right.
We talk about these things; they're so simple, right, CJ? At least it seems like it should be simple, but unfortunately, it's sometimes not.
But that's a good segue into next week. Next week, we're going to be talking about the writer's purpose to entertain. So we can kind of see how those lines kind of cross and come across. So don't miss it next week at 1 p.m. Central Time on Wednesday. Same place you found us today. We'll be talking about the writer's purpose to entertain. Through the month of January, we're going to be pulling back a little bit and kind of dissecting things like we did for Instruct and let you kind of get a little bit more in depth. Make sure if you have any questions to email them to bookworldthegreatescape@yahoo.com, and I'll be happy to answer them. Or if they're too technical, I'll send them to Mike to answer. In the meantime, have a great week. Enjoy your New Year's. Stay safe.